Everyone, gradually the semester is coming to a close, and I know you are preparing steadily for your exams. Now, in this video, I'm going to briefly give you some tips on how to answer examination questions. Now, it has become necessary for me because I realized during the marking of your examination scripts last semester and even this semester when you took your class test and your quizzes and your assignments and everything. So I realized that there were certain little mistakes some of you made that caused you one or some few marks. But 1 mark is not just any mark. 1 mark can actually move you from a B plus to an A or an A to an A plus. It can move you from a D to a D plus. So if 1 mark is equally significant as any other mark. So in this video, I'm just going to give you some brief tips on how to answer examination questions as you prepare for your examination this semester. Now, the first thing I want you to bear in mind is that when you are giving the exam question, take your time and go through the exams carefully. The exam questions carefully. You don't have to rush. Take your time and go through the exam questions carefully, especially with the objective part. When you pick every question, make sure you have read the question, you understand the question before you choose your answer or you circle an answer. Some of you are of the belief that these are objectives, so I can just select any answer and then I may be right. You understand? It's like you gamble with the answers. Let me just circle anything. But you don't have to circle anything. You need to make sure that whatever you are circling is the correct answer. So you pay attention to the question. How is the question formulated? You understand? You pay attention to some of the key words in the question. In the objective questions, for instance, and a question may be asked, but there may be a word like except, or does not, or like include. Now, if you read the question and you don't pay attention to recognize that there is a does not or an except, you may end up choosing the wrong answer. Let me give you an example. So, for instance, there's a question like, the following are some African traditional practices that are said to negatively impact the welfare of its members, except, you understand? And the options are answer A, trochosis system. Question B, female genital mutilation. Question C, marriage. Question D, widow inheritance. Now, in this type of question, if you don't pay attention and realize that there is an except there, you are going to end up choosing the wrong answer. And sometimes you equally need to pay attention to the answers that have been provided. Sometimes you realize that all the answers are in a certain category, and there is one which does not belong to that category. So if there is an except or does not include, and probably you don't even know the answer, but you realize that some of the three questions are in a certain category, but the other one is not in that category, that should inform you that then that may be the right answer. Again, sometimes some of the answers we put in the objective answers are just made up answers. But if you don't study your notes very well, you did not attend lectures, you may not know that these are just made up answers. For instance, there's a question like this. The type of marriage where a person may have a number of spouses in their lifetime, but married one at a point in time is referred to as answer A, serial monogamy, B, selective monogamy, C, selective polygamy, then D, monogamy. Now, if you have read your notes on marriage very well, you would know that in our discussion of marriage, there was nothing like selective polygamy. There was no type of marriage that is referred to as selective polygamy or selective monogamy. So obviously, these two answers are not supposed to be considered when selecting your answers. But you can only identify these made-up answers When you have actually studied your notes, read them, and understand the questions. So, in answering the questions, you need to pay close attention to how the questions are formulated. You pay close attention to certain keywords. And you also pay close attention the objective answers that have been provided for you to select. Some of them are odd, so you don't even consider them in your selection. Again, in answering the objective questions, please pay attention to the instructions. Some of you, when you are asked to circle the answers, you don't circle them, rather you write the answers. For instance, question A, the question 1, the answer is probably A is monogamy, B is polygamy, C is widowhood marriage or widowhood rights. Instead of you to write A or B, you rather write monogamy or polygamy. Last semester, most of you made those mistakes in your exams, and I'm entreating you not to repeat it this semester. You read the instructions very well. If you are supposed to circle the answer, you circle it. If you are supposed to write whether it's true or false, you write true or you write false. You don't write the answers that have been provided there for you. And you also need to ensure that if you are supposed to just state true or false, just state it. You don't do anything else apart from that. Now let's move to the written aspect of the question, the essay aspect. That is where most of you have difficulties. Now, in answering the essay questions, you need to pay close attention to the question. You've been given about 2 or 3 questions, and you are supposed to answer 1 or 2. Go through the questions that have been given to you. Select the ones that you can answer with confidence and with ease. Every question carries the same mark. So don't think that if I answer the question on marriage, I'm going to get more marks than answering the question on West and East conflict. Every question carries the same mark. So weigh your strength. You ask yourself, which of these questions can I answer very well, confidently and with ease? And then you select the one you can do that. When you select the one you can answer confidently with ease, you jot down your points. If you're supposed to give 4 reasons, or you're supposed to give 4 importance, you make notes on your question paper elsewhere. You write down your answers, even before you begin to write. There's the possibility that whilst you are writing, you may forget some of your points. But once you note it down and you begin to write, you pick your first point, you write about it. When you finish, you go to the notes you have made, you pick the second one, you write. It makes your answers flow. There's coherence in your answers, and you are able to express yourself very well. When you are also answering the essay questions, you need to equally pay attention to the keywords. Are you supposed to state? Are you supposed to state and explain? Is it describe? Is it compare and contrast? So if, for instance, there's a question like compare widowhood, widow inheritance and the Levirate marriage. The keyword is compare. So you give us the positives and the negatives. What are the similarities? What are the differences? When we say compare, you just don't go and state. Or when we say define, you don't go explaining or comparing. When we say list, you just list. When we say state and explain, you just don't state it. So for instance, state 3 functions of the family. You just go straight to the point. 1, procreation. 2, financial support. 3, because the question says list or state. But when we say list and explain, or state and explain, or examine or evaluate, you don't just list them, but you explain it. Listing it gives you a mark. Explaining also gives you a mark. If you only list, you lose the marks for the explanation. If you are also asked to give examples, make sure you provide examples, because the examples also come with marks. So if you only explain without giving the example, you also lose marks there. So in a nutshell, you're supposed to pay attention to the keywords that are used in formulating the essay question so that you answer it accordingly. Okay, one thing I also noticed is that some of you, when you write your point and you are supposed to explain, you just repeat yourself. You don't actually explain it. So for instance, give 4 examples of functions of the family. And then you write procreation. That's your point. And then your explanation is that it is the responsibility of the family to procreate. Full stop. You haven't explained it. You have just extended the points you have indicated. It's like you've just put in words, but you have just repeated yourself. You said the same thing. You understand? You have not explained. If you are supposed to explain, it is the duty of the family to bring forth children, to increase the number of people in the family, and you understand, you add all those things. For instance, you're supposed to talk about probably the family provides support, and then just write, it's the duty of the family to provide support. You haven't said anything different from the point you have raised. So you can say that it is the responsibility of the family to provide various forms of support for its members, it being financial, economic. You understand? That by that, you are explaining the answer. And once you have finished, give yourself time. You have 2 hours, probably 2 hours or 2.5 hours to answer or to finish your exams. Demarcate the time for yourself. So you know that with the objective questions, I am going to spend 30 minutes. So you make sure you spend 30 minutes on the examination questions. With the essay questions, I'm going to spend 20 minutes on each question. So you make sure you spend 20 minutes on each question. But you demarcate the time such that you have enough time to go through your answers once again before you submit it. When you go through your answers, then you probably come to realize that you made a mistake somewhere or you deviated elsewhere, and then you can make amends. But if you don't apportion your time very well, and probably when we say stop work, you are still writing, you won't even have enough time to correct the mistakes you have made in your paper or on your paper. So make sure you read and reread your answers again. So in summary, as you are preparing for exams, if you don't have a personal timetable for yourself, this is the time to make one. If you have one, you stick to it. You take your studies very seriously. You study in detail your notes. You study them in detail. You make sure you understand the concepts that you are reading. You understand the points that are being raised. Once you are given the paper, you go through all the questions very well. The objective questions, you pay attention to the keywords. You make sure you select the correct answers. Don't just select anything for selecting sake. The essay questions, you do same, you go through the question well. You select the one that you can confidently and conveniently answer very well. You answer it. Make sure you have enough time to go through your questions, your answers once again before you submit it. So I wish you all the best as you prepare for this semester's end of semester examination.